Who inspired me to do what I'm doing in jazz and vocal jazz in particular? Okay, well, that question has many different answers because, as most of us in jazz know, there's so many great artists out there to listen to and to emulate and learn from, and no exception for me there. But I think my earliest memory of really being turned on by the ensemble sound of jazz, which is what I love to do most, was hearing the Manhattan Transfer, and many of us have been, influenced by them from early on. Hearing them do even their first bit of material that came out with a big splash. I remember hearing them do boop bop boop. That wonderful sixth chord that they did on Tuxedo Junction with such a swing and feel. From there, it just, it just excited me so much. I thought I would love to have a group that, did an ensemble thing like that. So I went on and I put together a group. It was a very fledgling attempt to sort of copying, the style that they were doing and listening back to the High-Lows and the Singers Unlimited and those great groups, the Four Freshmen that came before. But I think it was really the Manhattan Transfer that really put it in the forefront for me and started me investigating what this great, harmonic ensemble jazz sound was about. Shortly after that, I became exposed to the incredible vocal jazz stylings and work of Lambert Hendricks Ross. John Hendricks and his lyrics and that amazing, ensemble sound that they achieved with just three voices and just captured the essence of so much of what was, great about jazz singing together in ensemble and harmony, really did that for me. So I was very strongly, and to this day I'm still, so primarily influenced by the work of John Hendricks, Annie Ross, and Dave Lambert. And we can talk more about that in a few minutes if you want, but they were a great influence to me too. I also have to cite Eddie Jefferson, one of my other great heroes, although Eddie was not singing in an ensemble capacity like some of the groups I mentioned were. He did something that just really took off in my mind as something that was really the marriage of just, great art and great fun and cleverness, where he did so much to expose us to vocalese, the art of putting, taking a great instrumental solo and writing very inventive lyrics to it and singing those lyrics one word for every note. What a great art that was. So I really emulated Eddie Jefferson a great deal. Still do to this day, and kind of have made him one of my great heroes in terms of writing lyrics and writing vocalese. So John Hendricks, Lambert Hendricks Ross, Manhattan Transfer, Eddie Jefferson, some really primary heroes in my life as far as inspiring me to do what I do with vocal jazz. I probably should preface all of this by saying I'm kind of a mutt. And by that I mean, I've done every manner of music, had a lot of musical influences and played in, garage bands. I've been a lounge lizard. I've played in pit bands. I've directed musical, theater productions and done all kinds of things, in choir and band and that sort of thing. I've done everything but studied jazz formally in an academic environment. Let me explain a little bit about that. From a very early age, I've been a pianist professionally. I played professionally since I was a teenager. And, so I played every manner of country club, wedding gig, lounge gig, all those kinds of things. Because I have a pretty good ear, play by ear. And I've always been a singer too. And so I did, my parents were both graduates of the music school at Ithaca College. Of course, great music school, we know. And they very wisely advised me when I was heading off to college, don't major in music. Or if you're going to major in music, do something, in the music education realm so that, you're not going to get out there with a performance degree and not be able to have a job, right? Good advice coming from parents, of course. And I was, I guess, smart enough or geeky enough or something to heed that advice. So I basically went into the sciences. In college, I majored in the social sciences and got a science degree in psychology. And to this day, I do work in the field of training and education, adult training, adult learning, and constructing training programs. So I'm really not by profession, by my day job, as they say, a musician. However, However, all along the way, I'd done every manner of thing you can do as a kid in high school and then in college, singing in choirs. I was soloist, I was a chorister, I was an accompanist, playing in the concert bands and wind ensembles, always done that. And so, and I actually did later on go on and pursue a degree in music education, singing opera, the whole time taking all of these influences, kind of legit, mostly classical influences, and then I went off and started discovering jazz after all of that, and just kind of having fun with it, playing whatever gigs I could play with whomever I could play with, and one thing led to another. And so that was kind of my education, is just inserting myself into the playing community. Of course, well, actually, this is probably true for many groups, is that, this is a discovery process, an ongoing exploration. As you learn more and more about the musician that you are and what influences you and what you like, you look for people who share that passion and the talents that you're looking for. So we actually formed this group, I should say, my colleague Robert McBride and I'll tell you about Robert in a minute, formed this group, way back, I think it was really in the 70s or maybe the early 80s that we formed the early fledgling genesis of Uptown Vocal Jazz Quartet, which at the time we called it Uptown. We didn't have the Vocal Jazz Quartet part in our name yet. So way back then, as I mentioned earlier, we were listening to the Manhattan Transfer and thinking, wow, how do they do that? Isn't that wonderful? We didn't know what we were doing, but we knew we had to do something like that. We're listening to Eddie Jefferson and his great vocalese, John Hendricks and his great vocalese, and Lambert Hendricks and Ross, pulling it together in their wonderful way. So knew that we had to do something like that. I'll just kind of do a little aside here. I'll talk about my longtime friend and musical partner, Robert McBride, whom I met, I think I was directing a college production of Godspell at the time at the College of William and Mary in the 70s. And that being the musical director for that program, for that show, involves putting together a pit band, very rock-oriented show with a pit band. And so Robert McBride walked in one day with his electric bass and auditioned for my pit band, and from then on we became great musical partners, went off and did rock bands together, did garage bands, did all kinds of things, and together we kind of explored these groups that I've been talking about, these artists that I've been talking about. So back in about the early 80s, we were just beginning to put together our vocal quartet. We had some folks singing with us then, and we had various people kind of cycling in and out of the different voice parts. At the time, I was the soprano in the group. I'm now the alto. So we've had different people in the different women's parts and some of the men's parts as well. So we did that kind of all through the 80s and then into the 90s as well. We had some people join our group in the 90s. Some people had left, other people had come in, gradually bringing into us, more and more influences, more and more education, from their own backgrounds. And we really, I would cite probably about the mid-1990s as to when we really took off in terms of becoming Uptown Vocal Jazz Quartet and really pursuing this art with great seriousness, thanks to the folks who were in the group at the time. And it just kind of grew from there. The other members of the group today, we are a quartet. Robert McBride, mentioned him. He's been my partner in crime all along, and he like me, we don't make our living as professional musicians by day. I do perform professionally as an avocation. But Robert, has done all kinds of fun little musical projects with me, and he's a computer guy. He's a systems analyst, so he's kind of in that scientific computer field professionally. But we both enjoy, pursuing this as an avocation very seriously. Other two members who are currently in our group today, Holly Shockey is our soprano. She's a beautiful person, beautiful singer, has been with us about 7 or 8 years now. And she sings, her regular job is singing with one of the military bands. She's been with them for a long, long time. She's been a featured soloist, prime singer and soloist, featured artist with the military groups, and she's got a great background in musical theater. And the fourth member of our group, our bass singer, is Andre Ensignat. Andre joined us about 3 or maybe it's almost 4 years ago now. He's a school music teacher, music educator in one of the school districts in the Washington, D.C. area. Andre, too, has a great background in musical theater. I've known Andre for many years, although I haven't worked with him until very recently. And he's been a front man with a couple of the swing orchestras in town as a wonderful, great front man, good personality and voice for that sort of thing. And all four of us have always loved the craft of singing together in ensembles. Because that's quite different than singing as a soloist. And of course, everybody's a good soloist as well. And so we brought that passion together, and we've been sort of exploring what we do as Uptown Vocal Jazz Quartet, capitalizing on the strengths of each one of us individually and knowing that the whole is always greater than the sum of the parts. How would we define our group style? Okay, well, we're very swinging. I've mentioned some of the people who are my heroes and, who I really have modeled over the years, our group after. I keep talking about Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross. I keep thinking about them because they did so much to this genre that I emulate and my group emulates. And I have to say that the feel is everything. The swing feel is so critically important to what we do. I would say we're not choral in our concept. We're much more instrumental. I think, and my singers and I talk about this a lot, is that what we do is we are really instruments with our voices. We're a horn section, first and foremost. I think the model that I always have in my mind is the bassy band. The bassy band for me is the fundamental, the quintessential, harmonic and swing style that we want to emulate as singers. When we practice our music, we think about, how would a horn section or horn player, horn section sing this line? Before we even put the lyrics in there, we're singing, just kind of scat nonsense lyrics, but what we're doing is we're internalizing and modeling that swing feel, the phrasing. So very instrumental in concept, very jazz ensemble instrumental in concept. I think there's a big difference between that and choir singing. All four of us come from choir backgrounds. We know good tone production. We know how to use the vowels and the consonants and all that sort of thing. And some of that you adopt and you adapt in this genre of singing vocal jazz in an ensemble setting. But a lot of it you kind of have to abandon because when thinking about it, we're instrumentalists now. We're using our voices as instruments. So that means the phrasing, the long, fat notes that a horn section would sing. We don't want to sing short clipped notes. We want to sing ba ba doo ba ba doo da ba doo ba ba da la da da ba doo da da. We're thinking ride cymbal. We're thinking, horn phrasing, that sort of thing. So very instrumentally conceived. Another part of that, and maybe I'm getting a little academic here, but it's hard not to think about this when we're singing it, when we're talking about it, is articulation. Diction is very important, but it's a different kind of diction that we use when we're singing vocal jazz than when we're singing in choirs, for example, because part of what we're doing is we're being the drum set too. We're being the horn ensemble with our big long notes, fat notes, and in very swing, laying behind the beat kind of phrasing. But we're also using our diction, our articulation to get the pop and the sizzle and the punch, that you'd hear kind of coming out of a drum set too. So that's very important to the concept. A little demonstration I could give you would be part of a song that I wrote. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. You're living a life that's fine and pleasing in the general estimation. Sa-da-boo-da. That kind of thing. So I'm really putting that sound very much in the front of my mouth, and I'm popping and sizzling, with the lyrics that we put in there. So that's a different kind of diction and different articulation than you would be doing in the choir, where you're doing kind of a long, open vowel mouth sort of thing. This is very frontal. So I think really the instrumental concept is how we would describe this. Very jazz, very horn ensemble, big band ensemble type jazz singing that we do together. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for, I greatly appreciate your citing our album, Hustling for a Gig, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. It's a great honor and a great thrill for me to know that people are tuning into it and enjoying it. Lots of information I could give you about the album. I believe you asked who are the backup musicians on that, and I'm glad you asked that because I definitely want to give a mention about them as well. One of the wonderful things about being in Washington, D.C., which is where our group is based, is that we have access to just such fine musicians. There's so many, the military bands are here, and, the alumni from those bands. So we have no shortage of very fine rhythm players, horn players. We work with a lot of the same rhythm players that we've been working with for many years. The guys on our album have been with us for a long time. I mentioned them. Frank Russo is our drummer. Our bass player is Max Murray. Our pianist is Alan Blackman, great pianist out of Baltimore area. And Steve Herberman, our guitar player. Those four guys were our rhythm section on the album. We had also some fantastic horn players who are well known to the Washington, D.C. area and beyond. We had a horn section which was made up of Chris Vidala, great sax player who's worked with us for many projects and many years. Chris Walker on trumpet, Lee Pilzer on tenor saxophone, and Jen Krupa on trombone. So we had a 4-part horn section on some of our tunes too. So that was a great delight, working with all those very fine musicians. So thank you for asking. About the album itself, well, I have a concept here that is kind of pervasive to what we do and how we do it and why we do it nowadays. And that is, there's so much great vocal jazz out there, solo artists doing wonderful things and ensemble groups doing wonderful things. I've always thought, well, what can we do? What should we do that is going to get noticed? And, let's do something that nobody's done before. So what does that look like? Well, I've spent the better part of, my career, singing arrangements that I've written myself of other people's songs, even singing other people's arrangements, and of course learned a great deal about the craft of vocal jazz arranging and what I like and what I don't like by doing other people's work. But it's become obvious over the years that in order to, it's time to do something that nobody's done before. And what is that? That's going to be your own original music. You know what you like. You know what your great influences are. I know that I'm influenced by the Basie sound. I'm influenced by Eddie Jefferson, Lambert Hendricks Rosso, those folks that I've already mentioned. The Four Freshmen, love their sound, and gosh, listening to Joe Williams sing, about going to Chicago with his monkey woman, something like that has always been, a wonderful, maybe cheap, but wonderful thrill. So, just think about all these wonderful influences and let me bring all of that together and let's do a catalog of music that uses, everything we know about vocal jazz and puts our own stamp on the genre. I think that the album itself is really, I have looked at it as, and would like to promote it as a package that, and I think you mentioned this, thank you for that, is really a little bit of something for everybody, if you will. I think one of the, I don't know if it's a mistake, but one of the things I would caution vocal groups and vocal jazz artists today about doing or not doing is don't get so caught up in the academics and the pristineness and the perfection and the pyrotechnics of what you're doing that you're going to lose the audience. Remember that we're here to make great art, but we're also here to help our audience have fun. We want to make our music accessible to them. We're paying homage to a style of music that maybe was largely from another heyday. So let's update that music. Let's get into the 21st century with it. Update our subject matter, make sure that our lyrics are smart and clever and, resonating with the audiences today. And don't be singing Hey Baba Rebop all the time and, Baby I Love Your Beautiful Eyes, That was well and good back in the 50s, but nowadays, audiences are pretty sophisticated and there's lots of information out there. So let's update the subject matter and make sure that we're singing about something that's really interesting and marry those lyrical themes with, all the great stuff that, that we hear, that we know that we like. We know that we like the sound of the instrumental ensembles, the bassy band or whatever it may be. We know that we love the swing and popping rhythms and phrasings of those ensembles. Use those techniques. Write beautiful melodies. Bring all of that together. And that's what I tried to do with Hustling for a Gig. And we came out of it, I think, with a pretty diverse package. Another thing is, vary your subject matter, keep it up to date, vary your textures, make sure that from one song to another, you're not oversaturating the ears of your audience, with all this big wall of ensemble sound, which is great, but after 3 or 4, songs that all kind of sound the same with that big wall of 4-part sound, then it's like having too much dessert. It's like, wait a minute, you might lose people a little bit here. So vary the texture. I thought about that a lot. We thought about that a lot with the constitution of Hustling for a Gig. We've got styles where we're singing together 4-part harmony, 2-part harmony, and then we split into 3 and 4. We're singing bebop, like He Was the Cat is one of the kind of bop-oriented songs. Then we're singing kind of a Lambert and Hendricks and Ross blues-based thing on Hustling for a Gig. There's a soloist, and then there's a group of backup vocals singing horn lines, and then we come together in a shout chorus, and we've got counterpoint, kind of a collection of different styles. They are based on the blues. We've got a couple of love songs on there. A love song that's for the rest of us, the older generation, called I'll Remember Why, where we're singing, it's not just, for youth anymore. It's like thinking about what do we reflect on today in our long-term relationships when we can't remember, the little picky details, but we remember what's important about those. That's kind of the lyrical theme of that. It's musically, it's a style that sort of emulates the Four Freshmen with the swoops and swirls of the phrasing. A little bit of Neil Hefti, Little Darlin' with the kind of space between the notes, that sort of thing. It's slow tempo. So that's a different feel. Then we've got, Andre featured on kind of a Joe Williams sort of thing, where he's doing his caught you spreading your love all over the place kind of thing. And we're, the chorus kind of remarking in the background. We've even got a little bit of an R&B thing on there. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that overall, you want to vary each song so that you have a different texture. You feature everybody. You feature your instrumentalists on solos. You feature each one of your voices as a soloist. You do your 4-part harmony ensemble thing together. You do your backup vocals on some with a featured vocalist, soloist in the front. And overall, you have if you approach your package that way, you've kind of got an entertaining program that's, as you say, accessible to people, as opposed to, something that's very academic and only, other jazzers and vocal jazz people, can really relate to it. So I think it's important to remember that we're marrying great fun and great art, and we're presenting what we present to satisfy ourselves and deliver our message, but also to entertain our audiences. And that takes a lot of thinking, I think. I think you definitely have to come prepared to rehearse. That means everybody has to do individual homework. You're singing, whether it's arrangements you wrote yourself or you're singing somebody else's arrangements. If you're going to do this well as a group, particularly if you're constrained by time, which we all are, we all have grown-up lives and grown-up jobs, and we can't be hanging around together all hours of the day like we did when we were in our 20s, right? So we have to come prepared. You definitely, I do expect that all of my vocalists, and they know this too, will study their parts, will do whatever they need to do to learn, whatever parts they are expected to sing, so that we can spend our rehearsal time, doing all the things that you need to do, singing together as an ensemble. rehearsal techniques, we're not very scientific about our rehearsal techniques. I just expect everybody will know their parts, and then we get together and we'll sing through the song. Cause we'll, kind of, if it's a new song to us, then we'll work through the notes a bit. We'll work through the harmonies. But what we all know that we are expected to do is we're making chords, right? There are really 5 elements to what we're doing here, which is it's challenging to put all these things together. It's like you have to be an Olympic athlete sort of to know exactly where your body's going to go and where your feet are going to go before you can, be in the moment and do all of that together. So that's kind of the way we approach it too. We're singing, we each have a voice part that we need to sing. We're singing in harmony. Harmony is everything here, and we're not just talking Mickey Mouse, 1, 3, 5 harmonies here. We're talking about jazz chords. We're talking about sharp 9s and sharp 11s and major 7ths and minor 2nds and all those notes that if you're the least little bit out of tune, or you don't know what voice part you're supposed to be singing in that exotic chord, whether you're the color note or some supporting note, if you don't know that, then we're really not going to be successful at singing the harmonies that are the essence of jazz, and certainly the essence of the ensemble vocal jazz we're singing. So we come prepared to do that, and we work it together. We sing the line, we sing together, we test ourselves on the chords. What note are you singing? What voice part? What note in the chord are you singing? We're constantly testing ourselves on that, and sometimes we're singing through the chords slowly. We do a slow time or even out of time approach to whatever that line is, so that we make sure we're hearing everything vertically as well as horizontally, and everything is tuning up well, and we're hearing those exotic, colorful chords. So we spend a lot of time doing that. We also spend a lot of time, or at least we should, I know this is at the forefront in our minds, is the feel. I keep going back to the feel. By that I mean the swing feel. But you really have to hear what a horn section would be doing, in your head as in the moment as you're singing those lyrics to it. The phrasing is so important, and the length of the notes and the attack, the front and the back of every note, how long you hold each note, how you string together those phrases, where you breathe. Very, very important. And I think I always encourage my singers to be listening all the time, listen to a big band, listen to what the horn section does. Keep that ride cymbal going in your head, as we're singing and putting the lyrics to it. So we have all these elements we have to bring together. There's the harmony and the swing feel, the phrasing, the articulation. We mentioned that with diction, get the pop and the sizzle in the front of your mouth as you're popping out those words. And then there's this horizontal line that you're singing. Each one of us is singing our own little voice part, our own little melody. So we're doing that horizontally as we're doing all of these other things together. And then we're singing really interesting chord changes too. We don't like to sing songs that we don't think have interesting chord changes, whether I write them or, there's something else someone else has written, have to be interesting to us. So, inherent in any jazz song is usually pretty interesting changes. So there's a lot to think about, all those ingredients to pull together. And we have to be thinking on many, many levels at the same time as we're practicing individually and together as a group. That's kind of a little bit about our rehearsal technique. It varies from rehearsal to rehearsal. If we're, hustling for a gig or pressing to rehearse for a gig, we're spending a lot of time kind of running the tunes and just doing some spot checking on those things. As far as arranging the tunes, I think you asked if I arranged them. Over the years, I've been doing more and more arranging. Of course, you start out imitating, and then you learn, you get your legs under you, and you learn how to do what you do because you know what you like. To quote, actually first heard this quote from Tim Hauser many years ago when I had a wonderful opportunity to talk to him backstage after a Manhattan Transfer concert. And I remember, this is many, many years ago, this is fan to idol now conversation backstage. And I said, Tim, I have this little group that I put together, and we're singing, a bunch of your charts, a bunch of your tunes, we love it, we love it. And Tim's response to me was, well, that's great because amateurs imitate professionals steal. And That's certainly the mantra there, and I think he stole that from Picasso or whoever invented that phrase to begin with. So for myself, I've been spending many years, kind of copying arrangements that other people like the transfer did, and gradually learning what do I like about this arrangement. I don't know what I'm doing, but gradually you learn by doing it and making your mistakes along the way. And over the years, I got pretty competent at writing the arrangements myself, to the point that I really kind of thought, well, this is what I want to do. I don't want to be singing everybody else's charts. I want to be writing my own here, and learning a lot about good voicings and good voice leadings. How do you write for each of those parts, particularly those inner parts, so that they're not jumping geometrically all over the place, so that they're singing a singable line and it's still something hip and not Mickey Mouse kind of stuff. So there's a lot to learn just by doing, and I've had some great people who've influenced me, whose charts we've sung over the years. But now today, I pretty much write most of the arrangements that we do. On Hustlin' for a Gig, I definitely wrote all of those, because I wrote all of the songs except for one. The one song was a wonderful song. I just have always loved the song by Strauss and Adams, the composers who gave us some great Broadway shows. A little known song called "This Is the Life," but has a really good melody, good changes. I always thought that would make a really hip arrangement, so I wrote the arrangement for that one too. So we included that on the album "Hustlin' for a Gig," and I did write all of the other arrangements that we sing on that album. So yeah, I'm pretty much doing most of them now for our group. I am very, very honored to be speaking today. I want to thank Alton and 5 by Design for sponsoring this wonderful project. What a great thing to be reaching all of us in the vocal jazz world, and those who are aspiring to be a bigger part of this wonderful community and family that we have here. Behind the Mic is a wonderful project. I speak for all of my group. We're just so thrilled to be part of this, because we all know that we all do something that's so special and so fun. We're marrying this great art and this great fun. The joyful sound of 4 or 5 voices or more voices singing in harmony together and swinging like an instrumental ensemble, and doing new innovative things with songs and lyrics. We all know how special that is, and we want everyone to know, to be able to experience that too. There's so much that we all want to share. So thank you to Behind the Mic, thank you to Alton and 5 by Design for sponsoring this wonderful project, and we love you all, and we invite you to visit our respective websites and find out much more about this great art of vocal jazz that we're doing. Thank you.